Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkhbhag Bhavet. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from diseases. May all see only goodness everywhere. May no one suffer from any misery. May there be peace, abiding peace everywhere by God's grace. Good morning, friends. The subject of my talk this morning is Bhakti Yoga, the path of divine love. Hinduism is the most ancient living faith in the world. There were other faiths, but they got obliterated due to the ravage of time. There are different cultures also. And Hinduism is the religion of the ancient Indo-Aryans. And the Aryans used to call themselves Arya. Arya means noble people. And every member of that society was expected to try for nobility. In the ancient books, we read that the wife is addressing her husband as Aryaputra, this son of a noble person. Everybody was expected to be noble. Eventually, that word started meaning some other things also. And eventually, it was translated into English as Aryan. So, Hinduism is the ancient living faith of the Aryans. And it is the largest collection of religious thoughts. This religion does not have any known founder. Those who discovered those truths, they had purified their minds, and with their pure minds they discovered those truths. The truth that there was God. And other people who heard from the mouths of these great saints who had experienced divinity, they called it Shruti. That means something which has been heard. That's why the ancient scriptures of Hinduism are called Shruti. And the language is Sanskrit or Vedic Sanskrit. And in that language, every word has different meanings. Shruti means hearing. Usual meaning is hearing. But Shruti in this particular case means that spiritual truths that have been learned from other saints or sages who had experienced such truths. And in these scriptures, there are many different paths given there. And that is the only religion which accommodates philosophy, religious philosophy. And there are 6 well-known systems of philosophy. And each such system is called darshan. That means seeing truth. the divine truth. And according to the scriptures of Hinduism, there are two different concepts of God. One is God endowed with a personality, the other one is God endowed with no personality. And God endowed with no personality is called Nirguna Brahman. Brahman means divinity. And the word other meaning is greater than the greatest. And the idea of divinity, which is a personality, is called Saguna Brahman. Nirguna Brahman is beyond time, space and causation. At the beginning, what was there? This answer has been given in the scriptures of Hinduism. At the beginning there was only God endowed with no personality, Nirguna. And Nirguna Brahman was beyond time, space and causation. The world has not yet been created. And then Nirguna Brahman became Saguna Brahman, endowed with the personality. How? Well, I have to explain that with the help of my analogy. I live in Seattle. The sky in Seattle is usually covered with grey clouds. And a person is looking at that grey sky with through a pair of red glasses, and to that person the sky would appear to be reddish. Another person is looking at the same sky with a pair of green glasses, and to that person the sky will appear to be green. Another person is looking at the same sky through a pair of blue glasses, and to that person the sky will appear to be blue. The same sky is appearing to be different to different people. And every pair of eyeglasses is the mind of a person. There are not two persons whose minds are the same. Each one is different. And these colors are being projected by the minds of the viewers or thinkers. Some people look upon God as Father. Some people look upon God as Mother. Some people look upon God as Child, and so on and so forth. That's why in some religions, God is looked upon as Father, such as in Christianity. It is only in Hinduism that is, God is looked upon as Father, Mother, Child, Friend, etc. Because these are all projections on that Nirguna Brahman. Projections on God without attributes. So impersonal God becomes God endowed with personality. That I have tried to explain. Because people project all those personalities on God. Those who look upon God as father, mother, child and so on, they can think of God looking upon themselves as someone who is father, mother and as a child also, and a friend. And the scriptures of Hinduism say that people are born with self-love. And this self-love has to be directed to God. And then that is called Bhakti. So with the help of that, one should try to experience divinity. There was a great woman saint in India. She was a princess. Her name was Mirabai. And she was a good singer and she composed some spiritual songs. In one song she says, "Nit nahane se hari mili to jal jantu hui." That means there are some people who think that if they to become pure they should take frequent baths. So about them she says, "Nit nahane se hari mili to jal jantu hui." If by taking bath all the time a person would experience divinity, then I would rather be an aquatic animal. But aquatic animals are not those who have experienced divinity. Phalmul khakar hari mile to padur badrai. There are some who think that by eating vegetarian food such as roots and fruits of trees, they will experience God. They are wrong. Because there are so many bats and monkeys. Have they experienced God? No. तिरन भकन से हरी मिले तो बहुत मृगी अजा, स्त्री छोड़कर हरी मिले तो बहुत है खोजा. There are some who think that by eating vegetarian food one will experience God. They are wrong. Because there are so many goats and deer. They eat only vegetarian food. Have they experienced divinity? No. And there are others who think that by giving up wives they will experience God. Then that is also not true. Because there are so many eunuchs. Have they experienced God? No. At the end, Mirabai says, Mira kahe bina prem se na mile nand lala. Mirabai says that without love of God, one will not experience God. Or in other words, she is saying that Bhakti Yoga, the path of divine love, that can help a person experience God. And nothing else. And that great Swami Vivekananda, who is known all over India. There are so many streets named after Vivekananda. It is he who preached this message of Hinduism in the Western world effectively. Through his elocution, he had come to join the Parliament of Religions held in 1893, and that's when he talked about Hinduism and its wonderful beauty. So that Vivekananda said, "Let me be born again and again, and God, please be ever my God of love." He is now speaking in favor of Bhakti Yoga. And Sri Ramakrishna also said, a devotee does not want to be sugar, but wants to taste sugar. There is another path called the path of rational thinking, called Jnana Yoga. There, this path of devotion is not encouraged. So, and they talk about the divinity which is in them, and they want to experience that divinity. So, Sri Ramakrishna therefore is saying, a devotee does not want to be sugar, but wants to taste sugar. Those who want to be sugar, they are people who walk the path of Jnana Yoga. That path is also there in Hinduism. That the devotee wants to taste sugar. In this path, love, lover and the beloved become one. There is a book, it is called Aphorisms on Divine Love. And it is said that that great sage Narada composed those aphorisms. And there is a sentence in that book called Satu Asmin Parama Prema Rupa. That means that bhakti means supreme love only of God. All people are born with self-love. But bhakti means supreme love only of God. And this bhakti has been emphasized in different scriptures. Bhagavad Gita is the compendium of all the spiritual truths that we have in Hinduism. And there, the teacher is Sri Krishna, a divine incarnation. And his student is Arjuna, a prince. And in that book we find that Arjuna is being helped by Krishna. Because Arjuna had come to the battlefield. In those days there were many kingdoms, say, to regain their lost kingdom. And to regain that, he had to fight with some relatives also. And when he came to the battlefield, he saw those relatives with whom he had to fight in order to kill. And that made him upset. That's why he asked Krishna. Luckily Krishna was with him. In those days they didn't have battle tanks. They had horse-drawn chariots. And the charioteer was Krishna, a divine incarnation. So Arjuna was lucky to have Krishna as his charioteer. Krishna was the greatest warrior of those days according to the books of Hinduism. But he decided not to fight because the cousins were fighting with cousins and he didn't want to join in that fighting. Therefore Arjuna went on asking Krishna how to get rid of this problem. That is, he thought that he would have to kill his relatives. Then Krishna first said, whom will you kill? Krishna gave him teachings on Jnana Yoga. He said, the soul is the person, and that soul is immortal. Na jayate mriyate va katachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya ajo nitya shashrato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The body, even if it is destroyed, nothing happens to the soul. That soul is the person. In other words, he gave some teachings on Jnana Yoga. But Arjuna's mind was not that developed, he could not comprehend that teaching. So one step after another step, Krishna went on trying to help Arjuna with giving different teachings. And Gita has many chapters, and every chapter deals with one method of experiencing God or the other. And in the last chapter, we read that Sri Krishna is saying to Arjuna, he had already given the teachings to Arjuna about different yogas or paths to reach divinity. But Arjuna was not developed enough to comprehend all those things. He was puzzled, so to say. Then Krishna is saying, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papaibhyo mokshishyami ma shuchaha. Arjuna, give up all those ideas and hold on unto me, and I will liberate you from all sins. In other words, at the end, Krishna is giving teachings to Arjuna on Bhakti Yoga. And the most ancient school of philosophy that we have in Hinduism, that is called Sankhya philosophy. And the founder of that school of philosophy is called Kapila. He is a great sage. And he tells how to gain control over the mind by controlling the mind, making it concentrated and more concentrated and all this. And at the end of those aphorisms, Kapila says, all these achievements, this goal, can be achieved through Bhakti Yoga. That's why many commentators on the Gita, they say that the main teaching of the Gita is Bhakti Yoga. And then there are other commentaries where the writers of those commentaries, they try to say something else. Some say that Bhagavad Gita teaches Karma Yoga. Some will say that Jnana Yoga, and so on. But at the end of all teachings, we find that Krishna is saying that take recourse to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti is supreme love only of God, of nothing else. The self-love with which everybody is born has to be directed to God. we read about one saint. His name is Tulsidas. He was extremely attached to his wife, and he could not stay with her even for one night. Then the wife one day said to him, that is, had you had such devotion to God, you would have experienced God. And the wife acted like a teacher. And then Tulsidas left home and became engaged in the pursuit of divinity. And eventually he became a great saint. The love that he had for his wife, he directed to God. Excuse me. So, Bhakti Yoga talks about devotees of God. And according to Bhakti Yoga, who is a true devotee? The true devotee has signs and symptoms. So, first of all, a true devotee loves to talk about God only. And a true devotee loves to see the beauty of God. And a true devotee loves to worship God. A true devotee loves to always think of God. A true devotee looks upon God as the parent, dearest friend, and also child. A true devotee loves to obey God all the time. A true devotee loves to be absorbed in the thought of God. And a true devotee also is one who cannot endure the pain of separation from God. In Sanskrit it is called viraha. Once, at that time I had gone to Banaras. There I met an elderly lady. She was my mother's friend. And that elderly lady was talking about her children, grandchildren, and so on. And I asked her one question. It is said that the mother's love is the greatest form of love. And the pain of separation from the object of love is unbearable. Is it true? Then she said, yes, my child. She looked upon me as her child because she was my mother's friend. She said that one of her children, as a baby, died after 2 months or so of being born. And the pain was so unbearable that that lady suddenly started crying. Then I said, why are you crying? He said, I feel that pain again of separation from my child. Then I said, no, auntie, you don't have to think of that child anymore. And then she stopped. So this is called the pain of separation. When a person can think of God like that lady, then the pain of separation from God becomes unbearable. And the scriptures on Bhakti Yoga talk about this kind of pain. And Sri Ramakrishna, the divine incarnation of this age, he said, for this age, the path of devotion is the best path. And there are so many parables also to emphasize that. There was a weaver. In those days, they used to weave everything with their hands. And he used to sell clothings and cloth woven by him. But he was such a devotee that to him it appeared that everything was being done by God. He did not see any difference between him and God. So, when somebody would come to buy the cloth woven by him, then he would think that it is God who has come. And had he been asked, who has woven that cloth, then he would say it is God who has done it. Everything according to him was done by God. This is what happens in case of a devotee of God. That person sees divinity everywhere. And it is also said that devotees of God after their death go to the abode of God. They don't want to be attributeless divinity. Attributeless divinity is everywhere, but they don't want to be that. They want to act according to the will of God. And such devotees after death go to a plane of existence which is called Ishtaloka. And they enjoy the company of divinity there. In the life of Swami Subodhananda, who was a great saint and one of the disciples of the divine incarnation, Sri Ramakrishna, we read that he had given initiation to a girl. Her name was Kusum. That was in eastern India. She was at that time living with her relatives there. And eventually her relatives moved to a place called Ranchi in another city. And then Swami Subodhananda, at the request of the devotees, had to go there also. And every time when he would go there, Kusum would come to him and to pay her respects to her guru, Swami Subodhananda. Kusum was extremely fond of him. Then Kusum became suddenly ill, and Swami Subodhananda used to live in the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Order, which is in Belur Math in Bengal. And Kusum was living in another city. That is Ranchi. And then she became very ill and then she died. And Kusum's family was visited by Swami Subodhananda when he would go to that city. And then next door neighbor, there was a neighbor family, they came to know Swami Subodhananda at that time. And when Kusum became critically ill and she was about to die. Then Swami Subodhananda was in another city near Calcutta. And then something strange happened at that time. The neighbors of Kusum's family had heard that Kusum was critically ill. And then one day they saw that Kusum was walking out of her home, parents' home. And Swami, following Swami Subodhananda. Then they wondered why Swami Subodhananda had come and they had not been informed of his visit, but they didn't know about it. And then they heard from the parents of Kusum with whom she had been living, that is, Swami Subodhananda had not come, but Kusum had died. But they saw Kusum following Swami Subodhananda and going out of the house and going somewhere. So it became a mystery. And Swami Subodhananda heard this story when he visited Ranchi later on. But he didn't know what this story meant because he had never gone to Ranchi at that time. Then he once went to the holy city of Banaras and to stay there in a hut and spend time in spiritual practice. And then while alone there, he used to go and beg for food as the sadhus do, as the renunciate monks do there. But he suddenly became very ill, and it was not possible for him even to get out of his bed and drink water which was there in a pitcher in the room where he was staying. At that time, he suddenly saw Kusum appear there. That might have been his vision. And then Kusum appeared there to take care of him. But anyway, at that time he asked Kusum about that incident. That is, the neighbors of her parents saw Swami Subodhananda and Kusum going out of Kusum's house, parents' house. Well, he had not really gone there. What happened? And Kusum said, when she passed away, at that time she saw Swami Subodhananda come and receive her. And Swami Subodhananda asked her to follow him. And she was following him. And after a while, and there was a wrapper on the head of Swami Subodhananda. And he removed that wrapper and looked at Kusum. Then Kusum saw that it was not Swami Subodhananda. It was Sri Ramakrishna who had brought her there. In other words, Kusum went to her Ishtaloka. Sri Ramakrishna was her Ishta, chosen deity. And as instructed by Swami Subodhananda, she accepted Sri Ramakrishna as the divine incarnation and God. So after her death, she went to Ishtaloka. And then Swami Subodhananda asked Kusum, that is, how come you have come here? Then he said, she was very happy in the company of Sri Ramakrishna in the Ishtaloka. Then Sri Ramakrishna said to her, he is very ill in Banaras. Go and help him. That's why she came. And so in Ishtaloka, a devotee is always in the company of God. And the devotee acts according to the will of God at that time. This incident was narrated by Swami Sambudhananda, one of the very senior monks of the Ramakrishna Order. He, on invitation, he once came to America. First, he was invited to come to Hawaii, where there were some devotees. And while he was there, he told them this incident, about that incident. So, the path of divine love or bhakti yoga can take one after one's death to the abode of the chosen deity. So bhakti means supreme love only of God. Self-love has to be directed to God. And when that is directed, one gets the vision of God eventually. And even after death, it is God who comes to receive that soul and take that soul to God's abode. Thank you so much.